The additional element. Malevich managed the pictorial culture department, Yermolaeva the laboratory of color, and Yudin the laboratory of form. The department was studying 5 movements of the new art: Impressionism, Cézannism, Cubism, Futurism, and Suprematism. By conceiving the theory of the additional element in painting, an attempt to explain the logical succession of art forms. Kazimir Malevich possessed, in addition to his creative talent as a painter, the mind of a researcher longing to understand the causes for the creation of new forms in art and the logic of their development. The black square required by Malevich's intense efforts to demonstrate theoretically that suprematism was not an isolated and rootless phenomenon, but a whole new step in the development of global art culture. Research became so intense during the Vitebsk period that in December 1920 Malevich declared, "I am going to exhibit what I see in the infinite space of the human skull." It is difficult to determine exactly when Malevich had the concept of the additional element in painting, but according to what he said, he already had this idea in mind when he arrived in Vitebsk. Studying the succession of directions in the new art, Malevich arrived at the conclusion that a given module of an addition inserted in the structure of the established visual system transforms it into a new artistic organism. This module was called the additional element. In Vitebsk, Malevich met many young people for whom art was an obsession and whose work reflected the clash of the most diverse influences within the new trends in painting. It was the ideal background for his research. Malevich continued his research at the Institute of Artistic Culture. In conformity with his additional element theory, Malevich asked or prescribed still lifes to the beginners to determine the painter's inclinations for one or another pictorial system. After his diagnosis, he worked with the young painter in developing his or her individual and unique artistic characteristics. During a discussion about the work of Valentin Kudrov, Malevich once said, "We must search in Kudrov for all the elements and correct them, but not make a cubist or suprematist of him. We will try to preserve this unknown element. We will try to allow it to develop in the future and to free it from foreign elements." Analysis of the students' work was done during Malevich's visits to the art workshops. As paradoxical as it may seem, Malevich affirmed that a true painter suffers from colophobia. This was the fruit of his assiduous research on the essence of painting, which he divided in 3 categories. First, colored and graphic painting, colored drawing, and painting in the style of Holbein. Second, colored and pictorial painting founded on the relationship of pure color in the style of Matisse, Petrov-Vodkin, and Malevich himself in his present cycles. Third, painting itself, Color is crushed and mixed, as in Rembrandt's paintings, Konchalovsky and Falk in their late periods. All three categories, however, are equal regarding their authenticity and quality. Young painters therefore learned the fundamentals of painting and the laws of visual expressivity. The texts of Malevich helped many painters from Leningrad find their colors and forms and original artistic solutions. Malevich encouraged young artists to discover the primitive expressive principles of the artistic form and taught them how to use these principles with freedom and conscience. Yelena Gurov. Mikhail Matushin was one of the founders of the Institute of Artistic Culture. He was in charge of its organic culture department. The issues studied in this department appeared in 1910–1913 within the common creations of Matushin and Gurov. While everyone had a keen interest in geometrification and Cubo-Futurism, the art of Matushin and Gurov demonstrated an original return to nature. A small, scarcely noticeable stream in 1913 that would flow like a great river in the 1920s. Matushin and Gurov did not override the new views about space and their comrades of the Union of Youth were passionate about. They simply interpreted them in their own way. A new direction in painting appeared in their work, the synthesis of the original view regarding space to the non-object and the natural and lived sensations. Yelena Gurov was a poet as much as a painter. She was constantly writing down her observations in words as well as through drawings and painting. In her work, Gurov was searching for harmonious correspondence in the subtle movements of the soul and life of nature, in which for her nothing was sludge, nothing was sluggish, nothing dead. At the moment in poetry when real passion was being unleashed, and in painting Cubist geometrification was in full swing, Yelena Gurov, ahead of her time, made a U-turn towards nature in her work. Like Filonov, although in a totally different way, she opposed mechanics for organics. Her verses and paintings were oriented towards the first element, that is to say, the process of nature. Gurov addressed herself to the savior earth and aspired to assimilate the creative process to the rhythms of lived nature. Try to breathe as the pine trees make a noise in the distance, as the wind unfolds and agitates, as the universe breathes. Try to imitate the breathing of the earth and the filament of the clouds. With Yelena Gurov, this movement towards nature was the object of an inspiration of rare hate and purity. There is, however, neither abstract schematization nor symbolist significance in this spirituality. The delicate and immediate feeling of truly living nature always warms the most imposing images of cosmic dimension. And the cup of the sky was bending for and all were drinking, and the sky was not diminishing. Elena Guru achieved a high synthesis of color and form without losing the accuracy and spontaneity of natural impressions. This characteristic gives her paintings the impression of acute spirituality. In her watercolors, it's as if the material substance of paint has transformed itself into chromatic formations, apparently spiritualized, vibrant with light, gently twinkling and whirling like plumes of smoke. In Guru's paintings, objects seem to lose weight and glide in weightlessness. Her colors come straight from nature, enlightened nature. One can judge Guru's palette and pictorial drawing through these sentences quoted from her diary. I will build a palace with the sunny spells of the sky. All those who come will receive crystals from the luminous sky, greenish, slightly tinted with pink or watery blue. And there will also be fluffy, soft clothes, silver gray. The intense spirituality in the art of Elena Guru, the insight of her moral and spiritual research have made her a central figure in the Russian avant-garde, esteemed even by those who did not share her beliefs. The opposition to positivism of the 19th century is a leitmotif in Russian art at the beginning of the 20th century. Many artists, writers, and philosophers of the time defined themselves as God-seekers. They were all searching, but few discovered, and this research often led to deadlock. Vrubil searched for God, but found the devil. Guru felt at ease in this world of ideas and concerns, of spiritual and moral emotions to which many painters and poets painfully aspire. Each of her works, each of her diary entries comes from her innermost depths, the artist's moral, religious, and spiritual experiences. Few of those around her suspected her art and orientation would belong to the future, moreover to a distant future. For years, the personality and work of Elena Guru have been a criterion of moral and spiritual orientation for the young artists gathered around Matushin.